How did mestizos interact with indigenous populations? Have you ever wondered how mestizos, those of mixed European and indigenous ancestry, shaped the interactions between Spanish settlers and indigenous peoples during the Age of Exploration? The story of mestizos is fascinating and reflects a complex social landscape in Southwest Europe and the Americas. Mestizos emerged from the unions between Spanish settlers and indigenous peoples during the conquest of the Americas. This mixing was not just about bloodlines. It involved blending languages, religions, and customs. Mestizos often found themselves in a unique position, acting as intermediaries between Spanish authorities and indigenous communities. Their ability to navigate both worlds made them essential in the colonial framework. Socially, mestizos held a distinct status. They were seen as separate from both pure Spaniards and indigenous peoples. While they enjoyed a higher status than indigenous populations, they were still below Spaniards in the colonial caste system. This status came with certain privileges. For instance, mestizos were often exempt from tribute payments, which indigenous peoples had to pay. They could also legally carry weapons, a right denied to many indigenous and African-descended groups. Politically and economically, mestizos played a dual role. They sometimes allied with indigenous groups, but they also participated in the colonial system that sought to control and convert these populations. Spanish authorities often relied on mestizos for roles that required cultural mediation, such as translators or local officials. This involvement helped shape the assimilation of indigenous societies under colonial rule. As mestizos adopted Spanish customs and Catholicism, they also retained elements of their indigenous heritage. This blending created a new cultural identity that influenced social dynamics in regions like Mexico. The capital city of Mexico was built upon the ruins of the Aztec capital, showcasing a mix of indigenous and Spanish architectural styles. From the perspective of Southwest Europe, particularly Spain, mestizos represented a way to extend colonial control. The Spanish crown recognized mestizos legally to encourage loyalty and facilitate governance. The process of mestizaje, or mixing, was viewed as a gradual assimilation of indigenous peoples into Spanish culture, aligning with colonial goals of cultural unification. In their interactions with indigenous populations, mestizos acted as cultural and social intermediaries. They preserved and transformed indigenous heritage within the colonial order established by Southwest European powers. Their role was vital in shaping the colonial societies of the Americas, bridging indigenous and European worlds while navigating complex identities and social hierarchies.